It's Tuesday night. I got one of my favorite people in the industry that I'm excited to do the show with. And Stephen from Leviathan is also here tonight. What's going on, everybody? Thank you all for being here tonight. All joking aside, Stephen from Leviathan Snakes is back on the show, and we got Winston from WHS Reptiles tonight. Stephen's got a new documentary coming out that I believe, I'll let him tell the story, but I believe it focuses on Bob Vu, and Winston makes an appearance in the documentary. So with the documentary coming out and Southeast Reptile Expo coming up, we thought it was an opportune time to get these two on the show. And I've been sort of secretly nudging or subtly nudging Winston for a long time to come on. So I was happy to have him on. He has been on the show once before, but it was when I was on vacation and I had a guest host. So it's the first time for me with him. That sounded weird. Anyway, we'll get to Stephen and Winston in just a moment. I hope everybody is doing well. Not that you need a weather update for Minnesota in February, but in case you're wondering, it is cold again. The false spring has left and we're right back to winter. I was out on a ladder working in single-digit temperatures all day today, so my core and legs are sore and cold. I just had this chill. Anyway, I'm looking forward to spring. It makes me really appreciate March and that time of year. A couple quick announcements. Let me see. Oh, it's always good when I don't know what my own notes mean. So first and foremost, while I still got your attention, Cold Blooded Cafe, good friend of Proper Royal, sponsor of the brand, just not the show. They have reset the Proper 11 promo code, so you can get yourself 11% off of an order of frozen rodents. And I don't know, as I understood what was told to me, it might have been reset like in the past day or two. So the response was so big from you guys, and I'm not being patronizing here. Genuinely, the results were very, very big. It's what a good sponsor advertiser relationship should be. So thanks very much for supporting Cold Blooded Cafe. I hope you do the same with all the sponsors on the show. But that promo code has been reset. You do need to use your email to log in. And again, that promo code is proper and the number 11. So proper 11 will get you there. Stay tuned to Craig at Bash Coders Instagram in the next couple of days. I believe Thursday is when it's coming, but there's a really cool announcement of a really big project that I'm fortunate to be a part of. I'm not going to name anybody else that's in it. You're going to have to piece that together. But there's a team of, I think 8 is the number. Really primo project. It's going to be just amazing. So keep your eye out for that. I'll be able to talk a whole lot more about it next week. But it's a really ambitious undertaking, and I'm really proud to be included in that. So check that out. Big thanks to Craig at Bash Coder for keeping or inviting me into that. I've spent a lot of time updating all the animals for sale on my website. That's properroyals.com. Morph Market will get updated this week as well. You can follow sellers on Morph Market. You can follow me, but you can follow anybody on that sells on Morph Market. I think you'll get notifications when things are updated and that sort of thing. So it will be by the end of this week. I actually finally have some time, a little break from renovation and construction, and I'm going to catch up on things around the house and around the shop here this week. I've been saying it a couple times lately. I'm not waiting on shed test results from Charlie. I'm waiting on myself to actually get around to sending him the sheds. Once he has the sheds, the turnaround will be very, very fast. But I have Clown, Enchi Clown, and Super Enchi Clowns that are all 66% het for Ultramel. Once I get those results in, I'll decide what I'm going to keep of those and what let go of those. And depending what I hit, I actually might make another Ultra Male Clown double visual available. Patreon gets first dibs, and there has been somebody who's already raised their hand, but you know, everybody raises their hands before you talk about money. So we'll see how that goes, but there will be other animals in that project available. If you're interested, just shoot me a note, drop me a line on Instagram if you like. Let's see. I haven't mentioned the Proper Royals Patreon lately, but I just want to give a huge shout out to that community. Thank you guys for kind of keeping me sane, being a sounding board, and just a great community. The access starts at $7 a month, and I'm not asking you to just be like, oh, woe is Adam, give him some bucks a month. That's not what I'm saying. It's a great community to do business. I see people selling animals on there all the time, learning from each other. I also put out regular Patreon only content, business minded. I just shared my budget format that I use to track my whole business on. I have this actual spreadsheet that I use. And then I do Patreon only collaborations monthly and weekly with people like Chris Eaton and Shane from Small Town Exotics. So if you think you might like it, come check it out. Last but not least, a huge thanks to Robbie Richard at WHS Reptiles. His logo is right up at the top when there's two of us on here. And actually, I have a, hang on a second. I got to give a huge thanks here. Let me pop this up here. WHS Reptiles right on the center left there. For a year now, Robbie's been a fantastic supporter of Proper Royals. I've been advertising for him as he sponsored the channel and this show. Robbie has his own expansion and construction projects going on. And he let me know that, you know, he's got to redirect some of those funds and those expenses to other things. But I want to say thanks. Any relationship that lasts a healthy year in business is something I'm so thankful for. I do have a wait list and some other advertisers and other locations that might want this spot. But if you're interested, you can always email me and sort of get on an advertising wait list. But I want to say thank you so much to Robbie. What a great partner. What a great person to do business with. I'll always vouch for Robbie. And thanks so much. I appreciate it. I hope you guys go check him out. I'll give you the full spiel here when we do the promos a little bit later. But thank you very, very much to Robbie at WHS Reptiles. You guys know Steven at Leviathan. He's been a good friend, supporter of the show. I think maybe, I don't think he was the very first guest, but certainly early on guest. He's one of the few people that I've handed over the reins to actually host in my absence when I try and go on vacation or if I get sick or something. And I'm glad to have him back. He has made just an incredible splash in our industry in a very short amount of time. He's got a new documentary coming out. We're going to learn about that tonight. And then Winston Smith from WHS Reptiles. I never spent a whole lot of time with Winston, but every time I see him at Tinley, it's always a fun time. There's always an energy and a spirit about him. He comes from that, there's like a old school breeder vortex on like the I-4 corridor, this magical place in the history of reptile and specifically ball python breeding, right in that range there. It was very cool. I got to spend my first few years in the industry interacting with some of those guys, but I never hung out with Winston. So I'm looking forward to having these two gentlemen back on tonight. So without further ado, let's get to it. If you will please welcome back to the Proper Royal stage, Steven from Leviathan Snakes. And I still have the, hang on a second. Man, I messed this whole thing up. Look, I didn't realize the slide was still up while I'm engaging the camera.
It's all right. There we go. Promotion.
Yeah, well, you know, it's hard when there's three people on. They don't get their the logos don't get their fair shake. So they got a little extra time. Okay, now then, please welcome Winston Smith from WHS Reptiles. Gentlemen, how are you? There we go.
Doing awesome. Doing awesome. Thank you so much for having us on, especially kind of short notice because this was like what, 3 weeks ago. I was like, Adam, please let us on your show. Like,
let me give you a little hint. If there's always another Tuesday, and as well organized as I may or may not seem, booking in advance is not one of my strong suits. So anytime, if you got an itch, just shoot me a line. You might get lucky. Who knows?
No, we really, really appreciate it. Also, Winston, how's it going, man? How's it down in Florida for you?
It's pretty good. The warm weather has come back here, which I'm pretty happy about.
It was 80 degrees yesterday and it was 39 today. It would like 12
Wow.
hours. It went from 80 to 39. Like it was wild.
Wow.
Like Winston,
Yeah,
where in Florida are you?
so I'm in East Orlando. I love that you mentioned
Okay.
the I-4 corridor, by the way. That was I was glad. So where were you located in Orlando when you were here?
Oh, I was in Jacksonville. So
Oh, okay.
I was in Jacksonville, but very specifically, guys like Dale, George MD, and Steve Casino all either let me vend with them, let me hang out with them, learn things from them. And Jeremy Bod was just a huge help and
Yeah.
influence early on for me as well. And I know he's a little newer than some of those other guys, but Dale, just great dude. I just asked him, I was like, could I, with no reason, I was like, could I vend with you sometime? And he was like, yeah, you can do that. And he's just so laid back, and him and Renee have really just looked out for me and always been a really huge support. So that stretch of road, and even Kittinger and those guys were really welcoming to me when I was just probably like an annoying show rat, so I really appreciate that whole scene.
It's
I
funny.
miss it.
It's funny you say that because I'm actually at an office building that my dad and I own, and I am right off of I-4 in Orlando right now. So,
I always made it a point to literally do everything I could to never go on I-4. If I had a show in Tampa, I would go like the back roads to Ocala and then cut south. If I had a show in Lakeland, I'd go down to Tampa first and then take the shortest length of I-4 I could back up to Lakeland. I hate I-4. It's terrible, man.
Fair enough.
How long does it take? Like, what's the mileage and how long does it take you to get to work? It's a nightmare of a road, right?
Oh, I mean, it depends on where you are, but let's just say from my house to this office location, I mean, at a normal, with no traffic, you're getting here in 18 minutes probably. With typical I-4 traffic and such, you're looking at, and the 408, which cuts across, but I mean, you're looking at 45 minutes at least.
Yeah. I forget, there was some show, actually one of the shows I was vending with Dale in Tampa, and I think he texted me and he was like, go ahead and open without me. Just tell people it's cash only till I get there. I'm like, where are
Dale
you?
Richards?
He's like, yeah. He's like, I'm stuck on I-4, man. He goes, I had to go home to, I forget, he's not in Daytona, but around, he's like, I had to go home last night and now I can't get back and I don't know when I'll get there. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm running Dale's tables today.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah, we have a really good community in Central Florida. From, like you said, Steve Casino, Jeremy, and is over in that area, and then Dale Richards, Jason Kittinger, Barry Swope, and then
Barry, that's right.
and as you go down I-4, Corey DeLong. So we got a great centrally located group.
I do think just all of the stuff, whenever it's like the Florida crew getting together, I'm always like, man, they have just a ton of really, really just amazing breeders all there in Florida. Justin Morph Jungle down there too, but he's Southern Florida, right?
Yes, he's further south than me for sure.
Yep. For us here in South Carolina, there's Flawless, there's Troy from Balls and Strikes, and there's other people as well, but there's not people like you, Winston, I feel like, here in South Carolina.
Well, the flip side
there's
of
not
that
many
is,
people like me.
the flip side of that is you don't have to sell against all those guys at your shows, though.
That's a good point.
Steven, I remember the Tampa Repticon being like, how am I ever going to sell a snake here, man? This is never going to, it's like a small version of Tinley in that area, man. It's cool.
Every Daytona in Florida or every Repticon in Florida is Daytona.
Yeah. I will say the Orlando Repticon has come a long way, a very long way. I actually used to put out flyers and little yard signs for them when they did their very first show here in Orlando, which I believe was their first show ever.
How long ago was that?
Buddy. Long enough ago that I worked at a pet store, and that's how I met them. They came in, asked if they could put up flyers and stuff, and I was like, "Can I volunteer?"
Yeah.
And that must have been 2005. I would say 2005.
Okay. All right.
So
Well,
20 years ago.
yeah, that gives me a little time frame on some of the other topics tonight. Um, uh, Shoot, I'm glad you brought up Barry. I see him everywhere with all the people that I'm talking about, and he's always just been great to me and very cool. I gotta get Barry on the show. He deserves a guest spot of his own. Like he's an excellent guy and a great breeder.
Oh yeah, yeah. Him and Jason were. It's interesting. We crossed paths a lot. 20 years ago, we just didn't know each other. We would end up at the same wholesale places, and we have a lot of the same stories from that era, but we just didn't happen to know each other.
Yeah. When did you guys like meet? If you're like crossing the same paths, but you didn't run into each other or get to know each other for a while?
No, not until like the mid to late 20 teens, like mid 20 teens.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I couldn't believe how many. So it's funny because some of these guys I would follow online and then found out they lived in Florida.
Right.
Yep.
Why? What was going on there? I mean, it seems easy to say, this whole thing going on I-4, but you guys, all the people that we've named, you guys have all been at it a very long time or relatively long time. Were you working together? Did you not realize you were working around each other? Was there like even like a further like if it was sort of a family tree, was there a central was there somebody like supplying you guys? Where did all this pop up from? I mean,
No,
it's not
I mean,
that big of a space, really.
there were like, so you have like groups of guys that knew each other when they were younger, and then kind of came up together. I didn't know any of them. I knew a few reptile breeders, and there are a few people, that I was working together with. And then I met gosh, I want to say I met Jason and Barry and Dale and all those guys in the mid 20 teens, and Steve Casino, um, in like about mid 20 teens. I honestly was pretty oblivious to the fact that there were so many ball python breeders around me. I was just focused. I had kids in 2014. So my focus kind of got pulled a little bit, but I
Yeah.
was focusing a lot on building the collection, working on the animals, and never quite realizing how many other ball python breeders were coming up all around the area. And I'd say maybe 2015-ish, 2016, I was at an Orlando Repticon, and you started to see a lot of new faces with good banners, and just started meeting people. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of neat that I don't know, maybe the word is serendipitous or what, something like that, that all of that was going on and you guys were sort of unbeknownst to each other. And I have to admit, like, even I took it a little bit, like I was sort of in awe, but even I took it a little bit for granted. I now live in Minnesota. There's a few really great notable breeders up here, but it's not just like bam, ba bam, ba bam every 10 miles for an 80-mile stretch kind of thing. But it is kind of, I don't know, it's sort of a flip side, like Snake Discovery, Dave Kaufman, JSA Reptiles, they're all here. And I'm like, well, that's
yeah,
pretty good company too up here. So I guess we're all over, I guess is what I'm
Mark
saying.
Bailey's up there as well, right?
Yeah,
Or no?
he is.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
he is. Yeah, he keeps a low profile. I never met him or interacted with him, but he is.
Well,
up
that's
here.
the thing. For a long time, I did as well. Sorry for my voice. We're battling like a cold thing going around the house, but
Sure.
but I lost where I was going. That same thing with me is I kind of kept a low profile for quite a while, and like I said, had kids in 2014. Was really consumed with life stuff, and um, then started getting out to shows a little bit more. I was good friends with Corey DeLong and Colton Shearer down here. And they were telling me about people like, you gotta meet this guy, you gotta meet that guy. But to be honest, I like honestly, okay, Dale Richards. For some reason, I thought Dale Richards and Jason Kittinger lived out of state until I met them. I thought they were I really did. I thought they were out of state vendors that came here. And I was like, wow, coming to Orlando Repticon, really, this place is good. It's coming up.
Really working hard, huh?
Yeah. So I was a bit naive at the time, as far like my attention was stretched and I just didn't quite realize it. But yeah, I'm very glad to know them. We have a really great group of guys here.
Yeah, and I'm not saying like, I don't know, people, I don't even know a strategy for this other than buy a snake and like actually go try and learn. But anybody that can get the invite to those breeder dinners on the 2-day shows on the Saturday night is
Yeah.
just, it's such a golden opportunity to meet amazing, wonderful people willing to share. And there's just really, really formative opportunities for me. Going back to that last topic, I wonder sometimes, because I even think of this about myself, and not that I'm really worried about anybody knowing me or anything like that, but like, I feel like locally, maybe everybody keeps a little bit lower profile because we don't want people to know that we have thousands of rodents or hundreds of pythons. But online or in these spaces, we're like, boom, look at me. And I feel like that's even magnified maybe with, and like I said, I've never met the man and never spoken to the man, but with Mark Bailey, like I said, I know he's here and I know he's historically important, but I've never been able to interact with him. But some of the other people I do interact with, and I won't say who, cause I do know them personally, but yeah, they're totally low key. It's like, they're just super well known. And they're like, you're not going to see it from the driveway and it's unmarked, but you'll see, a stump here with a green spot on it. Take a right. And I'm like, okay.
Well, Mark is kind of notoriously, I don't know what would the term be, low key. Like when I met him in Daytona, and when he was vending Daytona, he would fly in like Friday, set up, and by Sunday at noon, he was breaking down and out of there. Like he would just come in, out, So he was always kind of an enigma. And then I got to know him a lot better going to Tinley.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know that I would know him if I ran into him, and I hate to say that, but because he's here. Like anyway, I have to try and reach out to him and connect with him sometime. Maybe be like, hey. Anyway, I'll be like, I don't need to know where you're at, but maybe we could say hello somewhere, from an unmarked location. So, tell us. Let's go all the way back to the start. Stephen, what do you got? What do you got cooking? I know that I remember one time we were doing like a goals show and I was like, I want to pair 8 females this year. And you were like, I want to do this feature-length documentary. And I was like, well, okay, we have a little different scope of outlook here. And I guess sure enough, we both achieved our goal that year, but yours was far more substantial. So and I know that you started on like a series of documentaries. Is this would you call this in the series, or is this sort of a standalone? Or are they all standalone? Tell us about what you got going on.
Yeah. So kind of going back a little bit like further. So that one that you're referencing, like where it was, we were talking about it. We're saying like, oh, I want to do like a documentary. We ended up doing, I think we released it in December of 23, the beginning of December 1st, 2023, we released the 15 minutes documentary, which was essentially covering Chris Eaton's 15 minutes of lame contest and how he developed it. It's kind of placed within the hobby. And then it also kind of focused on Courtney and I during the year that we had won. So that's kind of what kicked it off, because before even that, in college, I was into like writing. Like I love science fiction, fantasy. At the time, if I could just pick my dream job when I was in college, it'd be like, if I can make like $30,000 a year writing fantasy novels, just enough to like live off of, that's all I'd want. But as you get older and as you like get a real job, it's like, okay, well, maybe $30,000 a year is a little low.
Like some stuff is good.
I remember fantasizing about making $38K a year at one of my first jobs. I was like, man, if I could make $38K a year, I could support a family of 4, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. I think I was 18.
Yeah. So with that, I still like stories. Like I did my master's in creative writing. And what happened is I wanted to find a way to kind of like connect the storytelling aspect of like my like college education and just that kind of like hobby and desire into both the reptiles and the videography, which is something that had like grown during that time. So I was like, oh, I feel like a documentary and the reptile hobby would be something that's really cool that hasn't really been done, at least anytime recently when it was coming out, because it was like Animal Planet was the stuff I was thinking of. I'm like, I don't really know anybody who watches Animal Planet anymore because like YouTube and streaming. And I think during that time, Dave Kaufman came out with his ball python documentary, and I thought that it was really, really cool. But one of the things that I like felt with it is because it's like all run and gun and it's just him, and it wasn't like a studio environment, it felt like it didn't feel quite as like cinematic as what I was wanting.
Right. Yeah. That it did, and not in a bad way, but yeah, it did feel off the cut, almost like a reality TV version versus
it was
versus
great.
studio. Right.
Yeah, great thing. I think it was really, really cool. But that was one of the differences that I was thinking on for the one I wanted to do. So when we did it with like studio equipment, lights, and we did that first one. It went off great. And one of the things that we did for it, like before it launched, was kind of a mini podcast press tour where we kind of like hyped it up beforehand. And then when it premiered, a bunch of people tuned in live. It was a great response. And I feel like that really helped out the video. And it's right up there with our top videos that we've ever done. Like I want to say it's like 18 or 19,000 views, which I know to a lot of people in the YouTube world, like that's not that much, but for us, that's pretty good.
It's pretty good. Yeah, I gotta say that's pretty solid. I have to say, I remember when you said that, I was like, I remember in my mind being like, was Steven going to run around with his cell phone and try and turn something? I was like, this doesn't make any sense when you're saying documentary. And we had known each other some at that point, but we hadn't worked together a whole lot. And maybe I'm just blown away that I'm trying to give you a compliment. I'm blown away that you pulled it off and that it was done just as I didn't know you could just like decide and whip out to make a documentary. Like it never occurred to me that like, that's just something you can wake up and be like, yeah, I think I'll do this. I mean, it's a massive undertaking. And how long was that? Hour 15, something like that?
Yeah, that first one, I think it was an hour and a half, like right like 125 or 1 hour, 25 minutes or something like that. So we did that one, and it was the very first one we'd done like that. And I kind of realized that I had a greater scope than what I felt like I realized I could do given my skills being the very first one. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to pare it back and I want to do more documentaries, but I want them to be like short documentaries, like 20 to 30 minute long episodes. So that way it's like easier to edit. We can like kind of get more practice getting more documentaries made and improve the quality with them over time. And that kind of,
and it also fits today's culture a lot better when it's when it's smaller.
Yeah. Very quickly when we shifted to the short ones, we decided that we were going to do a whole on documentary series. So the very first one that we recorded was with Corey DeLong down in Daytona last February, I think it was, or maybe it was the February beforehand. I don't remember which year. And that's when we recorded with Winston, and Winston crushed it. By the way, fun fact for everybody in the chat, I met Winston and Adam on the very same day, like in person. It was the same day, same time.
At Daytona?
At Daytona. Yeah. That was
I did not know Adam at that time.
No, he didn't. I didn't know. No. That was the day you picked up a
don't say it real quick. Don't say it yet. Don't say it. If anybody can tell us what the very first Instagram post that Adam ever posted, put it in for a super chat for $1, and the first person to get it can get a $10,000 credit from Adam.
What? Whoa! Take it easy here. If I'm going to be giving out, I need some juice. So, Steven, you got to back it with a $12,000 loan if that's how this is going to go. Yeah, you guys could take a stab at that. But yeah, the very, very first Instagram post I ever posted was from that day that I met Steven. And Steven is not in the post. I don't even know if I knew how to tag people. I was just like, screw it, this will get some views, I'm going to post this.
And it's relevant to all three of us on here, so there's your hint.
Nice.
All right, so tell us about, while they're working on that, and everybody's scrolling through my Instagram, you got to pay $1 to answer, folks, though. So tell us about this episode, I guess, then focuses on Bob Vu, is that right?
Yes. So this one that's releasing tomorrow at 7, I think it is. It's either 7 or 8, but I'll look. I'm pretty sure it's 7. It focuses on Bob Vu. So at first, we were going to, when we were first doing the series, we wanted to focus on people who had taken reptile breeding full time. And that we kind of did that, but we also kind of shifted it a little bit to focus on like reptile shows. So like with Corey's, because we focused on Corey for the first episode, we also kind of talked a lot about Daytona, because Daytona is like honestly like a really, really important reptile show for the entire reptile community. And like
Sure.
Winston talked about his experiences with Daytona in his episode, and it just seems everybody has a Daytona story. So then the next show that we did, I think this last year was 35 years for Daytona. Is that right?
I
don't know
believe
if you
so.
guys, but
Because I think it was
so,
95. So that would make sense.
yeah. So the next one that we did
wait.
was with
That'd be 40 then.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
I
okay,
did.
yeah.
I just went, oh,
No,
wait.
it'd be 30.
30,
30. It'd be 30.
Yeah,
not
yeah, I
40.
did.
Yeah.
I
30.
definitely did that math wrong. Like
That's
I said,
all right.
whole
I did
household,
too.
whole household getting sick. I started getting sick this afternoon, and I was like, I'm not canceling on these guys.
Like, I've been
So I'm
doing
trying
shots
to
of
pull through,
NyQuil all
guys.
night.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to pull through on this.
You're good. I appreciate it. You're good.
Yep. All good. All good. So we did Daytona and Corey DeLong for the first episode. Second episode we did was Nick and Troy for All American, brand
Right.
new show, like coming out of the gate really, really strong. And then this one for Bob, we were initially going to do it for Tinley. And you'll see when it comes out that it's you can obviously tell that like Tinley is a strong theme in it, but we were going to release it right before the fall Tinley, and we got hit by a hurricane and I could not finish editing it.
Right.
So we it kind of pushed it back, and I'm like, okay, well, like we don't want to like just release it willy-nilly. We like to coincide with like a big reptile event. And we could have waited until March Tinley, but with Bob's show, the Southeast Reptile Expo this weekend, we felt like that it was a perfect opportunity for it. So I am stoked with how this one turned out. Like,
Good for you. And so this is the third of the sort of episodic ones, the shorter
Yep.
ones. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So we also have footage of Brock for his episode, which we need to re-record your part for Brock's Winston. I don't know if we're gonna have time this upcoming weekend.
We'll talk about it.
Yep. So we've recorded with Brock, we've recorded with Will from RCR up in Canada, with Billy. We have some of the pieces, we don't have all of it, but we need to record with RGI. There's various other people, but those are people that we've recorded with and we have their footage. We just need to develop it, but it takes time to develop it because it's a lot more editing into these videos than our regular YouTube ones.
Yeah, I would say I slack off doing regular YouTube videos just because of the amount of editing. Like, I can't imagine how you get bogged down in that whole process, man. Not to mention the computer processing requirements that you've got to have, man.
Yeah, I find it super fun. I like the videography. I like the editing. One of my like New Year's resolutions, I guess, which I've honestly kept pretty like heavy so far, is that every single day I want to either film or edit something. Like, so that way I'm like constantly like improving that particular hobby. But so in Bob's documentary, Winston like talks about Bob like quite a bit, like his experience meeting Bob, all of these different things. And then also there is some really, really amazing things that Winston talked about in the like missing Tinley Park show, the like lost Tinley Park that happened at this right as COVID was kicking off.
Yeah, the COVID year. Yeah,
March 2020.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's some stuff, and I don't want to, I'm throwing this out there. I'm sorry I'm teasing you guys, but we got to get you. Part of this is promoting the documentary. You got to watch it.
You got to go watch it. Yeah.
It is stuff I have never seen anybody ever talk about on like the internet. I've never heard people talk about what happened during that like secret missing Tinley that happened at the hotel.
Now I'm starting to question how much I said. When I'm looking at Steven's trusting face, I'm like, oh, I feel so safe here. I just say stuff. So hopefully it wasn't too crazy.
No, it wasn't bad, but just really cool.
One of my I have no idea if this is related or not, but I'm going to take a stab here because if it's not, it's a funny story. And if it is, well, then people really are going to have to go watch the documentary. I had met and I knew of Winston, but one of the more recent Tinleys within the past year and a half. So one of those three, there was a picture that was up for auction at the auction.
Yeah.
That was Winston and Brian Potter stark naked. No,
wait. Don't get Potter coming after me now. No, it was me, Mike Schultz, Dave Levison, and Chad Holker.
Oh, I really thought Potter was one of them. So there was
Oh,
4.
I
I thought there was
wish.
2. Oh yeah. I was like, look at that. That's Potter's ass. But they are
Yeah.
they're sort of strategically lined up where you know that they're. I don't know how the hell this picture came about. I don't know the story behind the picture.
You'd
I
be
just knew that
amazed
it was
how impromptu it was, actually.
well, I figured maybe that was in the mix of that crazy COVID year. Maybe you guys were like, all right, all of you at the urinals, get naked now. I don't know.
Honestly, I would have to ask Dave Levison what year that was. I live in the moment, man. When I'm at reptile shows, I'm just going. So I'm not sure if that was 20 or 21.
I just remember thinking to myself, I was like, I don't know what this guy does, but he's got some charisma, man. There's like a certain panache to Winston. I mean it, man.
Yeah.
Like
Hey, I appreciate that. What I lack in butt, I make up in charisma. So
that's right. And honestly, really, once we're married, that's really the way you'd want it anyway, right? I mean, like,
fair enough.
Once we're out of the game, like, let it be charisma. No, but I mean, even in your Instagram, I was looking for the pictures to work into the thumbnail. I was like, I'm a massive believer that one of the best advertising that any business of any kind can do is just show happy people having fun, maybe with the product. Yeah. So people enjoying snakes, people enjoying an auction, my career, restaurants. I could just take black and white pictures of people smiling over food. That was all I ever had to advertise. Like it was, but your Instagram does a really, really great job of that. And it's sort of infectious. So it's like, I got to get Winston on here one of these days.
Hey, I really appreciate that because I know I'm lacking big time compared to everybody else when it comes to social media. I'm aware. I'm going to talk to Steven this weekend at the Southeast Reptile Expo and try to get myself on a better track with social media. So I honestly appreciate that. But some of my favorite experiences are all at reptile shows.
Yeah.
Going way back to my first Daytona in 2005.
It's like an infection. You can't fake it. Like if somebody tries to fake it or put that on, it comes across as ingenuine. So just because it is that real and that authentic, it does really, really excellent on it. So anyway, for whatever it's worth, I think that conveys really, really well. And that was, like I said, when I'm like, whenever I'm looking for somebody to have on the show, I'm like, I'd rather have to slow somebody down than be like, okay, next question, number 7. You know what I mean?
My wife said you got lucky because I'm run down today. So she's like, well, at least you won't run over everybody.
Well, it's funny. I've had Troy on before, so I have a little bit of experience with some of you charismatics with no hair on top, So, Troy, how you doing, man? I hope you're well, Troy. So yeah, Kevin got it right. It was Steven's Sunset that he bought or picked up that day at
Sunset Leopard female, right?
Yeah, the very first one that was ever produced. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Well, I didn't know. I don't know if I knew it was the very first one, but yeah, I remember I was like, I got nothing this interesting that I could post. I'm just take a picture of it and I'm going to post it.
But yeah, that's how that snake is how I met Winston. I met Brock in person. I talked to Brock on the phone before then, and I met Corey because Corey wanted to buy that snake, and we had already purchased it. So.
Oh, you didn't. I thought you were going to say you had an opportunity to like flip it. Like, hey, I have this.
No. He was like, he had wanted to buy it from Brock, but Brock was like, it's already sold. Like,
yeah. And Corey was vending right behind us at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But yeah, so that Daytona is how I met all of you guys, at least in person. So
yeah, Steven and Courtney walked up and they were just the most. And I swear to God, I'm not just saying this, but they like right off the bat, you meet these people and you're like, man, these people are just they're just salt of the earth. They're very genuine people. I care a lot about that, and it came off of them pretty much immediately. And I remember thinking, I'm like they were very new, and I just remember thinking, like, man, I hope these guys do okay. Like they just seem so sweet. Like I hope they make it in the reptile industry. And then look at us now. I mean, in a very short amount of time, Steven and Courtney have done a lot. And we're better off for them, by the way, in this industry.
I think so. Yeah, that's a good point too. And I think credit to Courtney for being the backbone, because of course Steven would just get run over in the industry, but Courtney's got it's like
it's true. It's true.
It's like a
She's
little bit of
tough.
an
She's
onion.
tough.
Yeah, there's that nice sweet outside, but inside there, and I mean that adoringly. But yeah, I agree, and I really I'm thankful for the bits of work that we have done together, Stephen. But I'm also thankful that we're both still here. I feel like there was a time that we were. I think we've always been encouraging of each other, but even pushing or challenging each other sometimes too. And I really, how cool is it? Like here it is, 2025, and different basement, different state, but here I am still at it, kind of thing, So it's a cool thing to see old friends and people that have become old friends through this world. Tell me about Southeast Reptile Expo. I know you're here a little bit on behalf of Bob and that show. For people that don't know what it is, kind of give us the scope of that. And there's been one. I have not been to either of them yet. Well, because only one's happened, but I haven't been to the first one. What was the experience at the first one, and why keep it going? Why do a second one?
Yeah. So right before this, by the way, Troy had put into the comments that I met him in a truck stop bathroom. Yes, that's true. And I met Chris Eaton in a roach motel with a bunch of studio gear. So
did you do the weird foot thing where you lift your foot twice?
Yeah, the double tap.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, so that's how you know, right? Yeah. He was doing that at my booth when Troy was just doing that. I was like, "There's something wrong with your leg," and he's like, "Yeah, baby." And I was like, "No, I don't know." Anyway, yeah, you just got to watch it with Troy. He's tough, you know.
Midwesterners.
All right. But for Southeast Reptile Expo, so the very first one, I also wasn't at the very first one either, because I was up in Canada with Shane for the Red Line road trip stuff.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But Courtney was there, and she said that it was an amazing show. Both Bob and all of his team that were doing it, putting it together, just did an incredible job. But the very first one, there was some drama with another show that happened, which I won't jump into all of that stuff right now on here, but there was some drama with it. So essentially what happened is that Bob had started advertising the show, and 2 or 3 weeks after he started advertising it, another show that said that they were going to do one, same town, same weekend, 30 minutes away from Bob's show. And the other show historically had done pretty good there, but they had said they weren't coming back and all that stuff. Right. So even with there being another really good show about 30 minutes away, I think Bob still ended up getting 6,000 or 7,000 people through the door, and a ton of vendors said that they did a really, really good job. So they had people like Justin vending it, down to people like Courtney and I. And one of the really cool things about it is that as people would go to let's say Justin's table, and they would see an amazing animal that's beautiful, really, really expensive though, Justin would be like, "I got you." And he would take him over to Troy of Balls and Strikes, who's across the aisle, and be like, "He has the ingredients to make the animal that I have."
Right.
And Justin was helping sell people, and that was going on throughout the show. Yeah. Everybody was doing that. And it seems like all of the vendors were working together to make sure that everybody was successful. And it was an experience that, again, I wasn't there, but as Courtney told me about, that I've never actually seen at a show before. You'll have your friends and you'll refer people over to your friends and stuff like that. But it felt like the entire show was like that. And it was a really, really cool experience from what I've heard. So Bob is doing another show because it went so well with that one. And this time he doesn't have another show competing on the same weekend. And it's this upcoming weekend. So we have 2 tables at the Southeast Reptile Expo, but because of the amount of clutches we hatch and selling things like that, we didn't have enough to fill both tables. So Winston's helping us out by bringing in some of his animals. So that way he's going to be there, and we're all going to be it's all under Leviathan and all that stuff. So if anybody wants to check it, and the animals Winston is bringing are insane.
Yep, got some sweet pastels, some super duper pastels. They're gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
A couple bananas in the mix there.
We got the bananas. We got the bananas over here.
To try.
Steve has the bananas covered.
Yeah,
I'm not stepping on these toes.
I still breed them. I still love them, man.
Oh, I love bananas. I'll be honest. One of my favorite things about them, so I have quite a few, females from back in the day. And my favorite thing about bananas was the way that they developed those black spots. So I actually still have just one normal female banana because I just love her.
Yeah, I really do enjoy them. They still mystify me. It's still like, what more is there to do? What can I work into other things? From the customers that I interact with at a lot of the local shows, it's still like the mind blowing, holy cow, is that a real, like,
Yeah.
that actually can happen? And I think that is still the foundational, like, building block, that reaction, not necessarily banana, but that reaction of, holy smokes, is that even real? That's amazingly cool, is still, I think, the foundational building block of everything that we do. So I don't want it to be the only thing I do or what I'm known for, but I do like that.
Well, you guys mentioned RGI earlier, and I actually really hope that one day they do a deep dive into, if they have the capability, into banana genetics, because essentially, I mean, it's an incomplete dominant albino. And in the heterozygous form, it undergoes an ontogenic color change where it just develops little black spots everywhere. That's crazy for just a basic mutation.
And then to throw in the sex link that do we know? I'm sure there's other examples of that in nature, but you really don't even, like, I don't even know.
There are in nature, but in reptiles specifically, none that I'm aware of.
Right. That's amazing that there's just this, that's just there in our hands that we get to work with and evolve and try new things with. It's unbelievable to me. And I try and explain that to people and their eyes glaze over. They're like, I don't, like Thanksgiving, they're like, well, why do you do this, Adam? This seems nuts. And I'm like, well, let me tell you. And then they're like, yeah,
the genetics are the coolest part to me. Obviously you have to be into reptiles to be into this. You have to be into snakes, pythons. Ball pythons are the perfect python because they actually look like the stereotypical python that, most of us think of. They're robust, they got a big body, but they never get too big. Right. So, I feel like you have that mixed with all these mutations, and the genetics are just the coolest part.
On the like breeding thing, this is one thing I've talked about in different videos, but I feel like that the reptile hobby has so many sub hobbies within it. And like, there's part of the hobby is like the keeping of the animals, which is super fun and super rewarding, all that stuff. But the breeding part of the hobby, like combining new genes into brand new combinations that have never been made before, and seeing these insane animals and like combos that again have never existed before, is a completely different part of the hobby. And I just think it's super rewarding and super cool.
I don't know what analogy there. And I'm sure it exists. I mean, I've heard of chicken farmers, but so many like breeders and various hobbies around breeding or even livestock focus on purebred. Whereas what we do is the complete opposite. The last thing that we seem to want, except for a couple, except for Kike, is that we want the purebred. We want all the mutations and genetic freaks, and it's cool because they're out there, man. So no, I'm with you on the genetics part of it. That is, it's a blast. What's give us before we get into like the really nerdy fun stuff of genes and breeders and all of that stuff, what are the details on Southeast Reptile Expo? It's this weekend. Is there a VIP on Friday night, or is this straight Saturday Sunday show?
Yep, just straight Saturday Sunday. So with VIP, my own personal opinion, I think that Bob has the same one too. VIP is so stressful for vendors. Like when you're trying to set up and then you have people coming up and like looking at your animals and you feel guilty because it's like, I want to do good customer service and talk to them, but I also have to get set up. And Bob was like, we're going to do the show on Saturday and Sunday and give vendors a chance to set up on Friday. Like,
I think it's a great point. One of my, like a formative moment in my career, I remember I was an entry-level manager at Ruby Tuesday. I think Winston, you talked about being stoked to make 38,000. I remember I had a salary of 36 and I was like, hell yeah, I'm glad I didn't pursue my English degree. I got my Ruby Tuesday salary. And I was 10 years, man. I was open one day and my regional manager comes in, or my director or whatever, and he's like, how come this isn't done? How come this isn't done? You're not open. And I was like, the front doors are unlocked. We are open. Take it easy. And he goes, just because your doors are open, don't mean that you're open. And that's sort of like, if I'm not fully set up, I don't want the customers to see that. I want them to get the full show properly done, all my plans,
Right.
all my everything executed. And that is one thing on VIP that drives me kind of crazy. Like you say, you want to give good customer service, but maybe the prices aren't right. You haven't got everything labeled yet. You got, the
Well,
dust
that and
that you
people are
haven't.
talking to you while you're trying to figure out prices, what looks good next to what, how's your
Right.
lighting. It as a customer, I absolutely loved the first VIP I went to was Tinley Park, Chicago, October
Yep.
show 2013. I mean, I was ridiculously geeked. And I loved it. Now that I'm standing there trying to set up with Brock
Right.
and get everything going, and we're talking to each other, and he's talking to Gretchen, and she's talking to me, and he's talking to me, and it's like, "Wah!" And it's a little chaotic with the customers. But
Yeah.
as a customer, I loved it.
Well, and I think you're right too, that sometimes we got to think what is best for the customer. What are they going to enjoy the most? They're paying a premium price to do that. They probably understand that this is not how we normally look. So yeah, it is stressful. I see both sides of it. And I certainly, from a promoter standpoint, see offering a VIP package is, it's like a backstage pass at a concert or whatever. I'm sure those people don't want, it's backstage for a reason where people can't be. Well,
Sure.
now you got people there. So I do see it, but yeah, I'm with you. And those are long days, man. They're just long weekends on that. Atlanta, Georgia. Where's the venue?
It's at the Gas South Arena Convention Center. I don't remember exactly, but it's Gas South. One of the two, Arena or Convention Center. It's where they do the hockey games. It's a beautiful area. We've vended at the same place one time before for like a different show. It's a great place. I'm super excited for it.
Great. I know it'll be a good show. Kudos to Bob, and for that matter, Troy and Nick with the All-American Reptile Plant Expo model. I really like this new kind of wave of people in the business or in the hobby doing stuff for people in the business and in the hobby versus, hey, I'm a promoter, but I don't do the other stuff, or hey, I'm a breeder, but I would never promote. It provides a certain insight and empathy to both the vendors and the customers. And I think those guys are, I was going to say uniquely. I wouldn't say uniquely qualified, because I think there's other people that would be qualified, but they're the ones doing it. And kudos to them. Those are big swings. I don't know if anybody knows, but to just put a deposit down on a venue like that is probably in the range of that salary we were just talking about, Winston.
Yes. Absolutely.
That's a scary check to sign to go, I think this is a neat idea. I'll try it.
Yeah.
I got a question for you, Winston, that relates to this. So you had talked about earlier that you were there for the very first Orlando Repticon and that you volunteered and helped put out like flyers. Compared to all of the shows reptile shows that you have seen pop up during your entire time in the reptile hobby, how do the new shows like Troy and Nick's All-American and Bob's SCRE, how do they seem compared to those shows launching that you've seen in the past?
Oh, I mean, incomparable. Back then, for one, everybody was shocked that there was everybody in the local reptile community was like, "What, a reptile show? I didn't even know there was a reptile show." Because keep in mind, this is 20 years ago. And it's like a few people knew about what we now call Daytona, but it was the Orlando show in like the 90s. But at that time, it was in Daytona, and it was really, you could tell that it was kind of make it up as you go along. And I don't mean that as a negative. It had a lot of heart to it. Like you could tell that it was a very family, run little thing, and they were just trying stuff out. Now you go to a new show that pops up and they're standing on the shoulders of giants. They've learned from all these other shows that are out there. I think that Repticon was kind of based off of like early Comic-Con type shows, not exactly Comic-Con, but like, comic book and that type of genre. And it's come a very long way. I mean, at least here in Orlando, what the first Orlando show looked like. I mean, it was a little anemic. So compared to fast forward to now, I walk into an Orlando Repticon and I'm actually really impressed at what it looks like for a Repticon, you know? Then you look at like the All American Plant and Reptile Expo, Bob Show. They're coming out the gate like they've already done it 10 years, in my opinion. So they're a lot more vendor centric. Also, what I really love about Bob's show is that he took into account some of the most fun things about national shows, which is the hotel, the attached hotel, or at least the hotel across the street. I believe his has an attached, which I love. And bringing in good vendor culture, I think, does a lot for a show.
Yeah, a couple thoughts on that. I know it's a popular, like Repticon's popular for people to like just dump on, but that Orlando and Tampa show were really kind of the formative experiences for me where I was like, this is amazing. I still remember, walking up to George MD's table and like 2 + 2 not equaling 4. And I'd been to other reptile shows but that one in Tampa, and I was like, what? Holy cow, look at what this guy's doing. And I think the showcase was really great. And the Tampa show, well, it's probably basically the same vendor. So a different venue, different style venue than the Orlando one.
Yeah.
But just incredible quality
well, it is Repticon, so it's mostly fairgrounds.
It's a fairgrounds.
So Tampa Fairgrounds, Orlando Fairgrounds.
Yeah. But the Tampa Fairgrounds, a little, in my memory, I was like, it's a little nicer than the Tampa one. But regardless, though, the caliber of people there is incredible. And I always had, I mean, as much as I said it was tough to sell against those people in the room, I always had good buyers and good customers at those shows. So I don't know. I have a special like nostalgic view of those shows, and I always have to speak up because, like I say, it's really popular for people to dump on Repticon.
Yeah, that's the complicated thing, right? Like I fully understand where Repticon sits in the current herpetocultural zeitgeist, let's say. But
throwing out zeitgeist, nice. That might be the first time on the show. I like it. Okay.
And listen, like I said, a lot of meds to keep me running through this show. I don't even know where I pulled that word from. So I'm just free associated. But no, but seriously, I love to see the fact, like, I love that I know where they came from. I'm not saying that they are the premier standard to hold your show to, but they have a place in the industry. And the thing is, they rolled out this model. And then I think other people took that, and then other national shows like NARBC or Daytona, and they built off of that. And I don't think the new shows that are being built up that we are very happy about would have the same outlook if it wasn't for somebody like Repticon starting, because you kind of got to know what you want to do and what you don't want to do, what, different styles. I mean, I'm not saying I would ever travel to a Repticon these days, but being in Florida, I am lucky that I have Orlando Repticon and Tampa and Lakeland to kind of hit, and it makes it easy to see your friends. So
that's right. They are good they're great hangouts, especially like I say, that Friday evening or Saturday evening hangout is great.
I think one thing that both All American and SERE have done well, which is good and bad for different reasons, but I think overall for a show experience, it's great for it. For the people going to the shows, is being selective with the vendors on who come in. And I'm not saying like you have to be like the biggest name out there in order to get a spot or anything like that. But what I'm saying is that, I mean, we've all been to Repticons or like small local shows where they didn't sell enough tables. So there is like a roof gutter salesman and there's a Mary Kay salesman and there's
Leaf guard, baby.
The leaf guard is just a punching bag of that, like the inside joke of the industry. It's fantastic.
It's so true. It's so true, though.
And why they keep spending the money too? Like, what are they? Like, it's so weird to me.
So we're in South Carolina, and one of our, like, the Charlotte Repticon is an amazing show, and the Columbia Repticon is an amazing show. So much so that they're almost always sold out for tables and all that stuff. So we have tables at the Charlotte one, but we don't have tables at the Columbia one. And it always grinds my gears when I go to that show, because I'll go because it's a local show and I want to go like support our friends and all that stuff there. And I go and I see that there is an entire end cap of like Mary Kay purses, pure romance, that kind of thing. And I'm like, as a show promoter who's putting on a reptile show, I get it that they're willing to pay for the tables, but you have a wait list for people. Why are you like allowing non-reptile vendors to come in before reptile vendors? Like, and it's stuff like that I think that the new shows, the All Americans and Southeast Reptile Expo, do really, really well because they actually vet their people.
Well, and again, it's like, buy vendors for vendors, right? Or for vendors buy vendors is basically what Bob's and Troy's shows are. They're the first shows built by people that vended a lot of shows. And I kind of avoided saying it the first time, but realistically, Repticon, they went out there, they were bold. You got to give them credit for that, absolutely. And they helped grow the industry at that time. But they gave a lot of people examples of things they might not want to do if they were putting on a reptile show. You also might want to have working AC and heat. Would be good.
Yeah.
You might. In Florida, one may. You might.
Yeah.
I will say it is a great. Now it could be challenging to get a table depending on which Repticon show, but it's a great sort of proving ground to work on your chops from a sales standpoint, setting up. Like
That's a good point.
And I hear the narrative. Well, if we vet all the vendors, how does anybody get a foothold of being able to become a vendor, right? I know Bob takes it on the chin for this, but the answer is, okay, go out and do some of the smaller circuit. Go get your chops. Go get, like, if you can earn it there, you're probably going to do well elsewhere. And I'll be honest too, in my experience, just where I'm at right now, one day this will change, but where I'm at right now, I do far better at the smaller local shows than trying to stand out at Tinley. I mean, Tinley is a grind to make $1 at, man. Yeah. This will be my 4th one coming up. And I'm well in the red on Tinley, far and away versus any other shows where I do damn near make a living, but not Tinley. So anyhow, anybody who wants to pitch that argument, like, go just enjoy the small,
but no, that's a really good point. Actually, it's a super good point. I didn't even think about that. But all right. So for example, like you were saying, go make your rounds at the local shows. If there was no Repticon, there really wouldn't be a local show or basically like a, I'm really bad with sports, but like, the minor leagues,
right.
It's like, you wouldn't have anywhere to be able to try out, and to your point about Tinley, you are absolutely correct. I give Corey DeLong all the props in the world for going up there, setting up and carving out his own name. I've really benefited from Brock Wagner and our relationship and our friendship. That guy has people that specifically come back every year to see him and shake his hand just because they bought their first snake from him, 15 years ago at that show or whatever it was. He's like a destination people seek out. So
right.
I don't know how I would do it if I was just on my own.
Well, and I think it's time and just doing it, but it's like a lot of, I really value the careers that have, like, the tradesman careers, I mean, specifically the restaurants. You could start as a prep cook and you could become a fry cook, and then you could become a line, et cetera, et cetera. Then you could become a sous chef and you could become a chef. And same way with, laborers to journeymen to master, electricians, plumbers, that kind of thing. Like, you got to get your chops in, go learn, go do the thing and figure out, hey, I like my display to look this way, or I look all around the room. I could stand out if I did this, or go ask the question here. And because you can relatively quickly ascend to the upper echelon at those shows. Whereas at Tinley, man, you got Mount Rushmore down every aisle. What are you going to have? I mean, what am I going to offer there? So it's like, it takes time. It'll come, but it takes time. So, guys, I have to pay a couple bills really quick. And then, Winston, I want to learn a little bit more about kind of your experiences. What sticks out in my mind, and you talked some about it, but what sticks out in my mind are some of the people that you work with, and then some of the people that I've seen in your pictures on Instagram. And they bridge the gap from some of the earliest days of ball python breeding where it was like a hobby, not just bringing in snakes to sell them. All the way up to, putting up with Steven bugging you about filming crap again this week, So I want to get to that in the final segment here. Guys, I just want to take a moment and thank the sponsors, tell you a little bit about them. As you all know, Redline Shipping is a longtime sponsor of Proper Royals. Proud to work with Redline. I just put out a video this week of an experience I had where FedEx really messed something up. It's not a smear campaign on FedEx. This is a company of humans and human interactions. We know that mistakes happen, so that's not the point. But it's a really good explanation of sort of like my positive review. I don't think I'm trying to sell Redline in that video. That wasn't the point of it. Stuff happens, and Redline was able to fill in and help me out. So anyhow, check them out. Use the promo code PROPER5. I think you'll find the customer service experience, the customer engagement, the online interface, all of that I think is quite seamless. And then just the greatest support team in the industry behind the scenes for you. Again, another example of reptile keepers for reptile keepers and shipping your animals safely. Shedtesting.com. Speaking of, that is Charlie Williams. He is a ball python keeper and breeder, but he's also the man behind shedtesting.com, the genetic testing. Over 32 genes advertised available. I could tell you he has a lot more from various complexes, so he didn't list the whole yellow belly or bell complex. If you see something in one complex, he probably has a test for what would that be? The other alleles in the complex. Check it out. But you could test for VPI, Xanthic, Wookiee, Sunset, Clown, Puzzle, Ultramel, Zebra, and more. And again, the whole yellow belly complex, if you're curious about what you have on there. Use a promo code PROPER15 for 15% off of 2 orders of individual shed tests. You can order as many individual sheds as you want per order. So just stockpile them and get yourself a good discount on there. And you can check out all the details at shedtesting.com. Hey, if we're talking about people paying for space, look at Keeper Kane with a $20 spot right there. Go check out Kane on Instagram, and he is also a member of the Patreon. You can interact and work with Kane there. Thank you for the support, brother. I appreciate you so much on that. Portuguese pythons, that is Danny and Renee Rocha out in Chino, California. They're doing a whole lot of cool stuff with really dark genes, with single, double, and triple combination recessives. All of my Ultramel Pied project ingredients are from them, and I should be producing my first Ultramel Pied combos this year. One of the things that Danny and Renee do extremely well is work codoms into their double and triple projects early on. It was a great conversation I had with Danny one time. He's like, what good does it do to make the first triple if then you have to start all the way back over making triple hets with one codon? He goes, do it along the way. So it always stuck with me. Pretty cool conversation. Let's see, Ultramel Clown combos, puzzle projects, and I don't know if it's sold or not, but I think it's still there. A Hypo DG VPI Xanthic triple ingredients, and I'm sorry. Right now on Morph Market, there are Hypo DG VPI triple projects that are on Morph Market. Go check that out. That's Danny and Renee from Portuguese Pythons. As I said earlier, special thanks to Robbie at WHS Reptiles. Robbie has been a supporter for over a year now. He's been a pleasure to work with. We did business before we ever were doing this advertising sponsor role, and I'm so thankful for a year of great business partnership. Robbie is building and expanding and growing his business, and basically just needs to redirect some funds at the moment. But Robbie will always be welcome, part of the Proper Royals family and story. So thanks very much. Check out WHS Reptiles. One more great promo for Robbie right here. You can go and check out his Morph Market. He has Clown DG Zebra project ingredients. You could go to whsreptiles.com, join his email list to get first dibs on all of his animals. And he's not going to sell you information or spam you or any of that stuff. Trust me, he's far too busy for that. And he also has his own YouTube channel. Robbie, thanks for the support. I appreciate it. I look forward to hanging out soon and getting you back on the show sometime and hearing about everything that you have going on in the future. Best of luck, man. Ball Labs, that is Trevor in Aurora, Colorado. Trevor is working on high-end genes, but also some this actually would be a cool question for Winston here in a minute, is maybe some forgotten genes, like genes that were hip or discovered, and they kind of got pushed to the back burner. Nothing really got done with them big time, but there's so many new like opportunities maybe to revisit those. But in the meantime, Trevor's working with Puzzle, Ultramel Clown, VPI Xanthic, Tri-Stripe, Monsoon, Zebra, and Sunset. And here's something I love about Trevor. He's doing things the right way. To be legally to be a breeder and seller of rodents in Colorado, you have to be inspected and licensed in the state. And there's like less than 10 of these people with this license because nobody actually follows what's supposed to happen. Trevor does. Trevor has his license, and I don't think that stuff happens in a vacuum. He's working within the system to try and improve it. And I love that about a partner of Proper Royal. So thanks very much. Check out Trevor at Ball Labs. He will be at the April AARPE show in Castle Rock, just outside of Denver. That's in April. And last but not least is Chris at WHS Reptilia, the original sponsor of Proper Royal. So proud to have him these years later as a partner still. He vends with me at Tinley. He's my vending partner at Tinley. And also, we actually own a couple animals together now. He's been a good mentor and a great friend and a very reliable business partner. I think he will be for you as well. It's Reptilia because he deals in ball pythons, blood pythons, locality boas, colubrids of all shapes and sizes, Pituophis, if that means anything to you. And he will help you with the appropriate permits and the laws. And he does have the appropriate permits when we have the Pituophis bull and pine snakes at Tinley. So rest assured, Chris has got you in good hands. He's also the regional distributor of the Chipper in Pennsylvania. And he is looking for more regional and local distributors of the Chipper. If you're interested in getting into that business model with Coco, feel free to get in touch with Chris at BNS Reptilia. Thank you, everybody, for the sponsors. Thank you, audience, for being here. Tonight, we got Stephen from Leviathan Snakes, and we have Winston from WHS Reptiles on the show. If you're just joining us, go check out the beginning of the show. There's a ton of knowledge and information in there. We talked all about the new documentary, the Southeast Reptile Expo, and a little bit about Winston, but I want to learn more. So, Winston, I see what Ben Cole in your pictures. I see Brock Wagner. I hear that you're vending with so-and-so. I see another picture with Barry Swope. You're hanging out with Jason Kittinger. Like, when I was talking with Steven trying to prep the show a little bit, I was like, this is like a bridge. It feels like a bridge to like this like old school and new school. And I know you've been at it almost 2 decades or right at 2 decades, but do you ever think of yourself in that way? Or do you ever, how do you go about like, I know that we never like think like, oh, here's how I meet people, but you seem to collaborate and work with a whole lot of people. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, I love people. I genuinely mean that. I love people. I love socializing. I love interacting. Like Steven said, he loves stories. I love collecting stories. I love telling stories. And I just love the more people I can meet and the more people I can know, I've always felt like the better. I actually met Ben Cole way back in the day. I think he was selling, I could be wrong, but I believe they were Greg Maxwell green tree pythons at the Orlando Repticon. That was kind of a gateway for me, hence how I ended up mentioning Repticon. It was how I first started meeting people. Through Ben, I met Eugene and Bill Brandt and the Bells. Ben was the first person to take me down to the Miami import areas. And it branches off, but I really do love people, and knowing the community in this hobby. And it's gotten so big so fast. It's honestly made my head spin, because when I got in it, I didn't have kids. I was younger. I had more energy. I was all over the place. And all of a sudden it's like I got distracted with business and kids and family. And all of a sudden I looked up and the reptile industry tripled in size. And which is a beautiful, wonderful thing. But I'm like, I got to make up for lost time. I got to meet all these people.
It's probably more than this was the craziest aha moment for me. So I went to college at the University of Florida. I got my, go Gators, blah, blah, blah. But there was a reptile shop, and I believe it was on, now I'm confusing myself. I believe it was either on 34th or right where 34th and University intersect with each other. And that is where I bought my very, very first 2 ball pythons. 1998, I bought those.
Wow.
And there was a guy who was very recognizable and memorable in that store. And I don't know if it was his store or if he was just hanging out or he was a supplier in retrospect, but I'll be damned if I wasn't at the Orlando Repticon and it was Ben Cole like 20 years later. And I was like,
yes, I believe Amir Soleimani. Oh wait, no. You said 1998.
It was probably, it might've been right at two. So I went to school
it wasn't Amir if it was in the 90s. Okay, I do know the owner. I don't remember his name, but he's kind of, that's like a legacy store there.
Yeah, and I remember a couple things because I got corn snakes, I got leopard geckos from that store, I got my first 2 ball pythons. They were normals, but I remember there was a pied in there, and that pied may as well have been $100 grand. I don't know how much it was. I remember like literally saying to myself, well, I could have a Maserati or that animal. Like that's how expensive it was. And like I say, I went to Gainesville in 98 and I took the long run there. So I was there to 03. It might've been 01, might've been 01, somewhere in there, but right around that time. But I remember Ben Cole very specifically in that store often. And I didn't know who he was. I didn't know anything. I don't even think I interacted with him. Didn't have any, but he's a memorable man. And I see him at vending at the Repticon.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's Ben Cole. I was like, geez, okay. So some of those guys have been around forever. You mentioned Eugene Bessette. Eugene was really, I don't know why. He always seemed to take a shine to me at the show. What are you doing, Anna? What's going on? We got to talk about what's going on in FWC. You know, he's a good dude. So what are some of the, like, you talked about the bells. I think I've met Mark, maybe I met him at Tinley, but I mean, not just a passing, just a high kind of thing.
Yeah.
What are some like crazy things that and I know that if there's one thing I know about Ben Cole, there's some things that we can't share on this channel, but like, what were some of the memories of like, quote, those days or experiences that you learned from those kind of guys or that school of guys?
That was, well, so going, meeting Ben, then getting to go up to Eugene's, that brought me into a different realm of like my first introduction to reptiles was, like you said, pet stores, the Daytona show, going to Repticon. And when I met Ben, he started talking to me immediately about like imports and, these big production facilities in this like large scale. And at the time, I really had no concept of that. So immediately I was like, could you get me in? Like, could I go up to Gainesville? Could I meet this Eugene guy? How
over, like, I can't really put it into words. Maybe I can. How overwhelming was seeing Eugene's place the first time?
Oh, it was awe-inspiring. I still remember walking to, he's like, I want to say it was like a Winn-Dixie. It was the same company that did, I believe, Winn-Dixie's like meat coolers or freezer section or something. And I walk in this entire building. I forget how many square foot. And he's like, you see this? This is a meat cooler from Winn-Dixie. I can cool these colubers in the middle of July down to as cold as I want, and that blew me away. The fact that he had like a commercial building the size equipped as a commercial cooler to cool colubrids so that he could have cycles of eggs year round. Little stuff like that blew me away.
He has 2 houses there, one that he lives in, but it's packed with snakes. And then what is it? 15, 20 trailer, like single wide trailers.
Modular buildings.
Modular buildings. There you go.
Yep.
And I bought some racks from him one time, and I just had my pickup truck, but I had my music gear in it. And I know you're probably going, what kind of story is this? So there's a company called Bose that makes speakers, and they make this speaker tower, and it breaks down into a little case. And that case was in my truck when I was loading up the racks. And Eugene like stopped me, like he didn't quite grab me, but whatever, I was like stopped in my tracks. And he said, I'm going to need an explanation if that's a shotgun in the back of your truck while you're driving into my property. I was like,
That sounds like
what?
Gene.
I was like, no, that's a speaker. He's like, can you open that up for me, please? Like,
I know
it
you
was
said
like
he
a
didn't grab you, but if
TSA.
I know Eugene, he reached out and he grabbed you right by your shoulder because that's what he does.
I was gonna say, yeah, I don't know if he like whatever he did, like either like I knew to
Yeah,
stop.
that's
I
his
knew to
move.
stop.
No,
Yeah,
that is his move, man. Is the shoulder grab.
yeah.
That's his move.
Yeah, I wasn't moving without an explanation because, and if there had been a shotgun in there, I'm not sure where I would have ended up. But
Well,
anyway,
you know, I'm kind of a romantic when it comes to the reptile hobby. I really love that old school '90s. You know, not that we need to go back to it, but I love learning about that era because I grew up
right,
in the '90s, going to these pet stores with my mom and Petland, a chain called Petland down here, and you know, she was buying fish. My parents wouldn't let me have pets. You know, and I was just amazed. And I remember looking at the snakes, and that was just an absolute no-go in my house. So I
right.
believe at one point they did let me get a mouse. That lasted about 2 weeks.
Right.
That it got out, and you know that went to hell. But yeah, so we were kind of a no pet household growing up. And so I would go to these pet stores, and then I start talking to people like Bill Brand or Eugene Bessette, and figure out like, oh, so these are like kind of the chain that, you know, how did the chain of custody kind of work from like Miami import docks to like brokers to like these pet chains, you know?
Right, right.
And like, and we're lucky in Florida because we have a lot of these old school legacy guys.
Yeah, well, right. That's the hotbed of them. I mean, well, think of everybody. We didn't even mention Crutchfield's out there too. So,
Yeah.
but I always really, really valued. So, like Stephen and I have spirited debates on business tactics or outlooks or way to go about it. But if you listen to a guy like Eugene Bessette and listen to his business model or what he thinks is how to make $1 million in this industry, it's even farther removed from anything Stephen and I would argue is the way to do things. And it's not that I think he's right or wrong. It's that there's so many different perspectives of people who have done it and who have succeeded and who are incredible at it. And really just giving another example of just somebody who's always giving of his time, always looked out for me, always,
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
and he's always pushing, he's always, hey, we gotta,
He was
we gotta,
ahead of the game on the legal stuff. I will
oh
say
my
that ahead
gosh.
of the game, absolutely ahead of the game. And you were mentioning like a different perspective. The thing is that those old school perspectives, to me, they just kind of inform. It's a way to inform yourself on like how did we get here?
Right.
How did this whole thing happen? And that's those are the stories I love being told. I mean, like Eugene is who introduced me to Wayne Hill, and then come to find out like who Wayne Hill is, you know, owner of
Right.
like, you know, the Daytona
Daytona.
show,
Yeah. Yep.
and getting those two together and hearing about the 80s
Oh my
and
gosh.
reptiles, the
I
80s
can't
reptiles in
imagine.
Florida, nuts. Yeah.
I can't imagine those two over a beer, but but even if it's a different perspective, there's still like specs that are just gold. I remember Eugene, I was at the Tampa Repticon, and Eugene said, hey, you got to come out to Gainesville. I got to come show you. You got to come see the ranch, I think he called it. And I said,
The farm.
The farm. There it is. Yeah, not the
Yeah.
ranch. Yeah, you got to come see the farm. And I remember Eugene. I said to Eugene, I said, I don't have the money to spend to make it worth the while. And I remember to this day the exact quote. He said, I can't sell you 100 snakes until I sell you one. He goes, I don't care what money you got. Come out here.
Eugene,
Like,
there could be a book of Eugene Bessette one-liners. Listen,
oh
100%.
yeah, that's true
100%.
too.
He is. I feel like he's the reptile, at least in Florida. He's like the reptile industry's grandpa. He's a great guy. I love that guy.
Yep.
And I, you know, can't say enough good about him. So,
Uh,
but yeah, you were talking about buying a snake. It's funny because I was at Carl Burden's Serpentarium when he first opened it, because Ben Cole did a lot of venomous stuff, and he was the first guy that would talk to me, like a first vendor that would actually talk to me after like a reptile show. And so I was
okay.
like, okay, I got to take her. Who can you? What do you do? Where can I go? How can I learn? What other snakes can I see? And Carl Barden was opening his Serpentarium, and I went up there, and that's when Ben was like, yeah, I could bring you up to Eugene's farm. I literally saved money for like he was like, come up next week. I saved money for a month, maybe 5 weeks, so that when I went up there, I could buy an albino ball python.
Oh, you had something to buy. Yeah.
Yes,
Right.
yeah. I was like, I cannot go to me. It was a huge deal. I was like, I can't go up here without buying a ball python, like
Right.
or something. And then after I saw the albino ball python, I saw albino hognose. He had albino western hognoses, and I was
Wow.
geeked. Yeah.
Huh. I don't even know. I don't think I knew that he even had hog noses. I will say I walked into one of the colubrid buildings and like, I was like, okay, I'm out of here. This is
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
there's a different smell
Oh
to
yeah,
colubrids.
ammonia.
And
Yeah, I
yeah,
have like when people, if you want to know if you have reptiles in your blood, when I walk into somewhere and I smell like colubrid shit, I'm like, oh man,
yeah.
this is like the old school reptile days, because I would help set up these repticons. I think I said the wrong year earlier. Like I said, I'm a little spacey tonight. But in the early 2000s, I would set up some or help set up some of these first Orlando repticons, and you'd walk in there and you just smell like the ammonia
Yeah.
in the room, and it was like distinctly just colubrid crap, in all
Yeah.
these deli cups. Yeah.
Well, I never experienced that. I had no idea. And he's like, yeah, this is the colubrid room. And I was just like, just a punch in the face. You're like, oh my God,
Yes, yes,
what did you do
absolutely.
to me?
I know exactly the building you're talking about too.
Yeah, man. So, okay. So those are some of do you still keep up with those guys? You still keep in touch with those guys? You still
Yeah,
active with
absolutely,
them?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. I mean, like obviously time is more limited these days, but I stay in contact with Eugene. Unfortunately, he recently had a loss, and I saw him at that funeral.
Did you go to
And
the funeral?
yeah,
I
absolutely.
won't get specific. She was what an angel, man. What like everything we just described about Eugene, the mirror image was just this sweet angel, just kind, just
Absolutely. Cindy
person.
was the heart and soul of that place.
Oh my gosh. I don't want to get too far into it, especially with personal stuff, but man,
Yeah.
what a shocking bit of news when I heard that, man. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
No, but I try to stay in contact with as many people as I can. And you know, I feel like it doesn't feel like 20 years have gone by or
Yeah.
more now since I first started like, messing with reptiles. But I mean, even going back to some of my old Sandboa friends back in the day, I see them at every Tinley. There's actually a guy named Rufus who now he vends Daytona, so I can see him every Daytona. So you know, I don't just talk to ball python people. I have a very broad interest in reptiles, even though my collection isn't very broad right now. But yeah, I like I said, I love people and I love I think relationships are kind of the fabric of life, right?
They are. Yeah. It's everything. All the other stuff. And yeah, the human interaction is definitely, whether it's family, friends, hell, even enemies, the ups and the downs are from human interaction. So, Winston, we are quickly approaching overtime. I always promise the guests about a 90-minute commitment, and I always tell the audience if we need longer than 90 minutes, we have to do it again sometime. But maybe we're kind of on a roll here. I got a couple quick fire things for you. How about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
From just sort of a quick fire thing. It seems like you're always vending, not always, that's a big word. When I see you, you're vending with somebody else rather than, I don't even know if I've seen your own banner or not. I'm sure I have, but it seems like you're always like a partnership with somebody, even if it's just for one show kind of thing. What's the model behind that? Is that on purpose? Is it just how it ends up? What's going on
there? There is zero model. There was no planning here. There was no model. In all honesty,
there's a layer of joke on that.
Yeah, in all honesty, I started. So I've been doing reptiles, for a long while. I don't know. I feel like as a breeder, you just never feel like you're qualified to vend. And for me, I think, gosh, I forget who encouraged me to vend my first Daytona. I won't even say, but I mean, like, so somebody pushed me to vend my first Daytona, and I did it. It might have been Brock. It was probably Brock, but it just didn't feel like I belonged. Like, I'm like, I always saw myself on like I didn't deserve to be on the other side of the table, right? So, started vending Daytona, and then around that same time, I started a business out of state, which demanded a lot of time, a lot of attention, and then right in the same 2 years, I had my twins, or well, my wife had my twins, or our twins.
Right.
So at that time, it was like, there was no time for vending for me. And I just, again, it felt intimidating to do. And then by the time that I came back around, and I'm like, all right, I got a little more time. I would like to start vending more shows. Most of the shows have wait lists now,
Right. Right.
and I started vending Tinley with Brock in 2015, maybe 2015 or
Wow.
16.
Okay. Right. Yeah.
Um, but it was quick, it was efficient. Like, we didn't put a lot of thought into it. He was like, "Hey, if you want to vend with me, I think I believe we had just started a project together." And he's like, "If you have any animals you want to put on the table, come on in, go ahead." And then the next year, I was like, "Well, hey, you're always in Daytona. I'll pick you up from the airport and you can vend at my table." And then it just started after that. I was like, "You've been like, he comes down here, he stays with me. I have everything set up. I have a table set up, blah, blah, blah. I
Right.
go up to Tinley. We do the same thing." And that just kind of started. And then with Steven, I actually reached out to him. He had mentioned that he'd have extra table space. And I reached out to him because I was like, I actually have my season got pushed back a lot later. I feel like it's the same story for all of us. Our seasons kind of get later and later and later. And I was like, I actually have some decent inventory in February for the first time.
Hmm.
So he was gracious enough to allow me to come up there with him and Courtney. But I would love to say that there was a plan, that there was thought behind this. I think you'll find with me, almost everything is very in the moment and a bit by the seat of my pants. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it is honest and it's genuine.
Well, and it seems to be going okay for you. People say, I wouldn't say they say it in the same context, but I am often being told, like, you need to slow down or think through this more, or that's a bit. And I'm like, it's just what I do, man. So, thank you for telling me about that. I have recently fallen in love with the rainbow gene, and I think you were one of the earlier people working with it, and I wanted to pick your brain about. We hear that they're tough to breed, tough to thrive. They were this big thing, and then they kind of, some local people are
All
like,
right. Are you talking Ted Thompson rainbow line, or are you talking about what Carlos at OTV Reptiles now calls the mimic?
I am not talking about the mimic. I
Ah,
don't.
okay.
I um.
So I was not associated with that original like Ted Thompson rainbow gene.
Okay.
The reason that I probably am is because I did. So I actually forgot there was like an era of my life where I did photography for a lot of bigger breeders, and like would get good quality photos for them to publish in books and magazines because they
Hmm.
existed back then. And I took photos for Brad Boa and Brock Wagner because they made this animal they thought might have been in that, rainbow complex or something, and they called it the Rainbow GHI. And I took those photos, and they kind of went, they got spread around quite a bit.
Hmm.
But so they bought a rainbow from Ted Thompson to breed into that project. And the genetics are actually pretty fascinating. I won't like put it all out there now. I know OTV Reptiles is waiting to put out like kind of how that off branch of the project went. But
Right.
I wish that I could be a little bit more knowledgeable for you on the actual what I would call mainstream rainbow.
Hmm. Okay. Um.
I really thought you were going to give me that was a little bit of a swerve because I thought you were talking about what they hatched out back in 2013.
Well, here's the thing. Here's how new I am. I have no idea what you're talking about. So when you were like, "Well, you're talking about
Hey,
this or that," I'm like,
I could do 30 minutes on
Yeah.
that the 11 years we've spent unraveling these crazy genetics with that thing, but that's another time.
"Well, okay, another time for that then." Winston, where can people find you? Where can they buy your snakes? How do they support you and connect with you?
Honestly, WHS Reptiles on Instagram. Most of my stuff on Morph Market. Brock and I like are partners on a lot of things. So a lot of animals that I produce end up on Brock Wagner's Morph Market. I need to
Okay.
get back in the game. Like I was saying, I had a bit of a detour, and now I'm trying to get more engaged and more online. So in the future, there may be more to that. So I'll let you know.
Okay. All right. So WHS Reptiles on Instagram for now. Southeast Reptile Expo this weekend. You'll be in Tinley in March, yeah?
Oh, always. I've never missed a thing.
Okay. All right. Always there. And then Steven, what's your schedule like coming up, man? And I'm sorry, I had like a Winston segment. That's the problem with three of us on here. I don't know how to, I know how to do like the two
Adam,
people.
Seriously, I need to be back on when, for one, I'm not coming down with a pretty rough head cold here, and with a better setup and lighting. I threw this together 4 minutes before we connected. And I feel like it shows. So I would really like to do this again when I'm a little more clear-minded and with a better setup.
Well, I'm glad that you're here. And one thing I've always debated with Steven on is, hey, the lighting and the setup is cool, but if the content ain't there, all the rest of the stuff is BS. And we got the content.
My eyes, here's the thing. I never thought through these lights in my office. They work great when I'm looking this way, but looking up, you guys have no idea how hard this has been trying to see your, like, and dude, I've been doing it on my phone, my pictures all messed up. You guys are tiny. I'm like, I will never listen to this episode because I doubt I did very well. I really appreciate you guys for carrying the show. So
I've been enjoying it, man. But yes, I want to have you back, and I gotta have you as like the featured guest one time. But Steven, back to you. Where are you gonna be at coming up?
All right, so tomorrow night we got the Bob Vu Redline Road Trip documentary sponsored by Redline Shipping. So you guys need to come out and watch it live. But if you don't watch it live, that's okay. You can always catch the replay. But I am so stoked for it. It's going to be a blast. Then the very next day, we're going to be on the Hold Back Rack doing a live with Jessica Hare. And I am super excited because it's my first time that I'm being on the Hold Back Rack.
Oh, you're entering the, what do you call it? Entering the Coliseum, man.
Entering the incubator.
Yeah.
I'm super excited. I love Jessica and I love her show. So
that was said with love. Yes.
Yeah. So it's Thursday, and then Friday we're going to be heading down to Atlanta, setting up for the Southeast Reptile Expo. We'll be there all weekend. Can't wait for it. It's going to be a blast. And I know that there's other ones, but I apologize because I have to look at the exact dates. But that's like this next week. And then other than that, Instagram, Leviathan Snakes, YouTube, Leviathan.
Perfect. Guys, go take care of Steven and Winston. Thank you all for being here tonight. If you're in the Southeast area, go to the Southeast Reptile Expo this weekend. Great luck to Bob and everybody that's a part of that. And thanks for what you guys are doing. I can't wait to get there one of these days. It's not as convenient as it used to be. Anyhow, I will see everybody same time, same place next week. Steven, Winston, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate it. Look forward to seeing both of you soon, and definitely come back next time. All right.
Absolutely. I hope I get back on. I'll see you guys later.
Definitely. Stick around in the green room for just a second. Audience,
Absolutely.
See you next time. Cheers, guys.